Hi, I'm Jane. I'm a social worker and a yoga facilitator, and I'm here to talk about another complicated topic, namely borderline personality. It's been requested of me, so I'm going to do the best I can. Welcome to this moment, maybe the most important teaching of whatever's going to come out of my mouth today, because this moment is all we have. And when there is a diagnosis of borderline personality, the moment gets lost in fury. The moment gets lost in dysregulation. So let's take a deep breath together through the nose. Hold it at the top and exhale through the mouth. Settle into this moment. Okay. You may have shown up here as a parent of somebody with borderline, and I'd like to just say something to you. I have experienced many parents of children and adolescents and young adults who get this diagnosis. First of all, the name of the diagnosis is ridiculous. It's like, how can anybody heal when they're told their personality is disordered? So welcome to healing. It's a terrible name. Don't take it on. Borderline is both genetic, so handed down from generation to generation, epigenetic, the way genetics show up from generation to generation, and also it's environmental. I am not a scientist to be able to say, or I don't think there's any research that shows what percentage is what. You know in your family. I want to remind you that none of us get it all right. I'm going to say it again. None of us get it all right. We make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes combined with genetics, combined with circumstances out of our control, create a child with a borderline personality. So might you forgive yourself for any mistakes you've made, and what you have is this moment. You have this moment to show up in ways that you trust based on understanding this diagnosis. So let me explain the diagnosis. It's partially about misattunement. How can I help this child, even if it's an adult child, feel seen, not feel my disdain, feel heard, and set really healthy boundaries. So pivoted boundaries from the past, because really I do think borderline personality is a diagnosis of boundary violations, if you will, where you try and meet a child's needs and then we overextend perhaps, and then out of that comes problems. Might you forgive yourself and do the best you can today? Because when we come into a relationship heavy from the past, it interferes. It's an obstacle to wellness today. The answer isn't in this talk, right? The answer is in getting the counseling and support you need, or some really good literature around what are some healthy boundaries and how to set them consistently and lovingly. Not easy, doable. And remember, because of neuroplasticity, which is the science of brain and nervous system change, we can change throughout our life. So this terribly named diagnosis can transform. It transforms with hard work, though. It doesn't just come and go. It transforms because each person does their part. We can't do anybody else's part. As the person with the diagnosis experiences your response that is true to you and kind and loving and boundaried, they begin to pivot, shift, transform. So neuroplasticity is the hope in the room for all of us. But it takes practice and persistence. So if you have shown up today, and I'm doing this for a person who asked me to do a talk on borderline, who has that diagnosis, welcome to this moment, my friend. We can't go back and redo your past. You have the present moment to begin to experience your life more slowly, more intentionally. And the way we do that is we practice when you're not activated. Once you're activated, your pattern of activating, so this personality diagnosis comes over years because it's the same thing over and over again, and then it looks really rigid in the way you behave. But because of neuroplasticity, you can behave differently. It's just really hard. It's really difficult. So learn to practice breathing every day. Maybe pause twice a day, morning and night, and do deep belly breathing. Hold yourself in compassion and say, how can I do this relationship better? Like your relationship with your mom. How can you speak more intentionally? Doesn't matter what anybody else does. You get to say that's okay, that's not okay. You get to learn by practicing new ways to slow down your response. And the thing with borderline is that it's a diagnosis of responding or overreacting. And when you learn to set boundaries, you on yourself and others, you can work yourself out of that diagnosis, but you have to want it, and it's really, really hard. I'm not sure I have anything else for borderline except the hopefulness that we can do better. Get a good book, get a good counselor, do a practice every day of breathing, pausing, slowing down your response. Don't point a finger at somebody else about their way they're behaving because you've got 3 fingers pointing back at you. You can grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, another person's behavior. The courage to change the things I can, how I respond, how I react, and the wisdom to know the difference. Maybe that's what this talk is about. So my friends, I'm not a big one on diagnosis. I love to see people of the world way deeper than their diagnosis, but we have to do diagnosis for insurance purposes. So if you've got that diagnosis or you know someone that has, remember to consider it a diagnosis of dysregulation, of learning to regulate, of learning to set boundaries, and do your part. Self-care first. We know if we are not sleeping well day after day, night after night, we can't do this work. If I don't have the energy to start my day from a good rest, I'm going to be dysregulated. If I'm not nourishing myself in adequate ways, and I understand that we have limits based on poverty and based on access, we might be struggling because of that. And I'm not sitting here with answers. I'm saying understand that lots of things have to be in place, and we can start now by taking care of ourselves. Okay, here's a namaste, hands together, thumbs to sternum, elbows raised, shoulders down and out of my ears, deep belly breath in through the nose. Long exhalation out through pursed lips to slow the nervous system down. May the regulated nervous system in me honor the regulated nervous system in you, and with dysregulation, keep coming home, beginning again to calm yourself down and work your way out of that silly named diagnosis. Oh, dialectical behavior therapy. If you're looking for a type of therapy to work with borderline personality, it's Marsha Linehan's borderline dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT. It's a mindfulness-based individual and group counseling. And if you do the work, so if you do the hard work with DBT and other modalities, that's not the only modality that works for borderline, but that is what's recommended. You can begin to work your way out of this diagnosis. Namaste, my friends.